And hosted by a vending machine technician, it's Lave Radio.
Attention. Would you like to reorder? Rate or rate? Would you like to do so?
Space can be lonely.
What now?
Oh, goodness me, that tune's a blast back to the past. Many years since I wrote it. Welcome to Lave Radio, the Veterans Panel, or, as we like to call it in this heat, the very slow rest siesta for probably about 30 minutes.
It's a rest home for broken presenters.
Yeah, we've just, for those of you who are joining us online, we've just had, well, the afternoon has mostly been Frontier, in that they were scheduled to come in for an hour, and they were then organised into an hour and a half, just in case they ran over, and then they ran to nearly 2 hours. So it pushed back the convention photograph, and it's pushed this back a little bit because we're all a little bit tired. But I am not going to complain about Frontier overrunning. I think the fact that they're supporting us and have provided extra time, extra content, and everything else into what we're doing, I think that's fantastic. For those that don't know, this is episode 399 of Lave Radio.
Oh, okay.
Did you not get the memo from Ben?
I don't check messages, you know me.
Okay, so yes, this is why this is the Lave Radio Veterans episode. It means that counting this as episode 399 allows the crew tomorrow, when they do Lave Radio Live, to do episode 400. So that is why we have arranged things as we have arranged things. And for those of you that don't know who we are, because you haven't heard our voices for quite some time, I will go through. So I am Station Commander Alan Stroud, and joining me is...
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were going to say our names. I can't remember what rank I was. Entertainment Officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Jarvis, also known occasionally as Commander Thane.
And I've forgotten what I was.
Try again.
There you go. I've forgotten what I was.
You were operations chief.
Operations, okay.
You and I were the executive team.
Oh, I didn't decide. Honestly, I was promoted way above my abilities. John Stabler is my name. And that's it. Okay, carry on.
So the interesting thing is that we're now at the 10th LaveCon, which, given that we were responsible for starting the madness that is this particular podcast, it is something of a strange thing to look back and think that was 10 years ago that we started turning up in hotels to actually meet the people that we were doing Elite Dangerous podcast for.
Have we really done 10?
Yeah. 2013 it was.
You're counting the online ones?
Yeah, I'm counting the online ones because I did a lot of work.
I mean, I thought for a minute when you were saying, we've done 10 LaveCons, it's a bit like me saying I've been married since I was 20. I mean, not all the time since I was 20. It's been on and off.
Well, we haven't been, broadcasting a podcast all the time for 10 years either. No, I get your point. But yes, this is the 10th time we have done a LaveCon. And it is quite strange to think that far back, to think that 2013 was that long ago, that we turned up to some hotel in Wiltshire and other people decided to join us. I have bad memories about that event. I have good memories about that event. At that point in time, we had a computer program that was only concept art, which got handed out to all of us. So we all got our graphic copy of something that was something they were working on.
I know what your bad time was. It was fine. And it wasn't so fine we've ever done it again.
Yeah,
but
we're not doing
fine.
it again. We're not doing it again. So we agreed to. I agreed. We agreed to do a medley of music in a live performance. And the one thing I hate doing is performing live. And Chris was fantastic because we were basically performing together. Chris was fantastic on the guitar, and I was awful on the keyboard.
Chris's problem on the guitar was I was great in rehearsal because we were in house lights. Then it went dark, and I can't play the guitar in the dark because I like to look at my fingers.
And I missed a note, and as soon as I miss a note, I'm gone. So I was kind of mortally cringing whilst trying to catch up and then stop myself from just putting my head in my hands and giving up. But it was, it's something you try, isn't it? And I think part of what we've done over a long period of time has been about trying different things, having content. At the time, we only had the idea of a Kickstarter game, a couple of video clips, and a few pieces of concept art. So we had to run a podcast and keep people interested with that.
It's kind of funny actually because looking back at it, you and the amount of content that we had with the Kickstarter, you'd think, how can you do an hour podcast based on, whatever the gossip is that's coming out of the Kickstarter? We would have been lucky to have only done an hour because I was editing back in those days, and we could have easily just talked for 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, we did. We had a drawing that someone at Frontier had done of a deck cannon and a missile, and we spent an entire episode talking about that.
And it was just so strange. I mean, those opening episodes obviously weren't live, and so we were recording them and then doing a bit of an edit, which meant we could kind of make a few more mistakes, which was quite nice. We weren't, and I'm not going to describe anybody trying to do a live episode as polished, because there are people who do it incredibly slickly, but I wouldn't say that we were polished later on when we went to live, but certainly the first few episodes benefited from being recorded because it allowed us some flexibility. But they were just sitting there of an evening and just going on and on about this stuff, and I haven't laughed so much. I don't know why we ended up just, it would be one or the other of us would set the other one off in terms of what was there.
It's not until you've actually edited something that you realise how much power you have. So if for instance, I always made myself sound really intelligent, and if I said something's dumb, I'd always cut it out. If I stammered, I'd cut that out. Yep. And if Alan had annoyed me that week, I'd put in all the dumb stuff that he said.
Or someone cracks a joke and you just mute out all the laughter.
Yeah,
just
dead air. You could insert dead air just to annoy people.
And I did some edits, and and I some weeks, because you did most of them, and I did some weeks I did them, and then Chris did some as well. And when I did them, I hate my voice when I say I cannot stand, and I know I do it, in that I will, and now I'm conscious of it, in that, there you go, in that I will continue to, to make a point, and I'm basically thinking on my feet in terms of what I'm saying and working out what I'm saying, but these ums will just perpetuate it, and I learnt to recognise the in the waveform, so I could just see the on the track and just go and get rid of all of my ums. So I sounded like this incredibly insightful when actually,
very eloquent.
When actually all of the pauses have been taken away, and I wasn't this machine gun of of incredible criticism.
Alan did a great summary of that feature in 2 minutes. It took 30 minutes to record. It was 2 minutes of absolute genius observation.
And he segued through your references to Tolkien several times, but we
added those after. Yeah, done in the edit. But yeah, I mean, we had to sit there and kind of come up with stuff, and I mean that created an opportunity, really. I mean, obviously, it created an opportunity with Escape Velocity for 3 seasons, which we're going to say again. hurry up with season 4. It allowed, other things to kind of come to the fore. I think the fact that at that time the project was very much born of the Kickstarter from the different licensed products that were around it as well. It gave opportunities for those licensed products to have their time, to have their kind of moment in the sunshine, and I think that was particularly useful for all of those things. The relationship between that and the game, obviously, is then worked out as the game starts to find its feet and everything else, and has a launch. But it certainly, at each stage, as we got more stuff, we were able to kind of do more little things with it. Even the fact that you've got the lore, and you're sitting on the lore, and you're going, okay, well, we know all these different things of the lore that's there. What can we do? Let's do spoof adverts, Chris. I mean, immediately it brings the names back, doesn't it? You start to bring the names to a new generation. Or then John, and I mentioned this earlier today, actually, John, you created that Frontier trading game, which we were all obsessed with.
Yeah.
The funny thing about that is I knocked it together as a web script within a day, and I stole the graphics and the color scheme from the Frontier game, the bulletin board system and the commodities market. And then I shouldn't have done it, but I did it. I posted a link to it on the forums. And before I knew it, there was loads of people in there chatting, and they were trading. And then people, within no time at all, they found ways to cheat the system, make an absolute fortune. And then some other people managed to lose a lot of money due to bugs, and then were emailing me saying, can you fix it? And I realized I'd done software development, the whole process, in a microcosm within an afternoon. So, test your stuff before you release it.
But it was just really, really amazing just to, in that moment, to have something that was very elite feeling.
Yeah.
That everybody who was really enthusiastic about this computer game that's going to be coming out could kind of join together and play around with. And I mean, we did some stuff with a. Do you remember we did some stuff with a space box as well, didn't we? Do you remember we started putting something together? Didn't we put something together where we made a. I can't remember what
there was a 3D space shooter game that.
Oh, that I got. Well, the idea was that I was going to knock together this small space shooter where there was two teams fighting around Lave Station. But by the time I actually got it working, they'd released the alpha. So I was like, well, there's no point having this anymore, is there? Because everyone was actually able to play the game, and I thought, well, okay.
Yeah, because you were asking me for graphics, and we were, and this was kind of one of the standard things that started to happen was that we'd come up with an idea, and it would kind of spark. So Foz would come in and go, I want to do a thing. Has anybody got a thing? And so you'd end up kind of writing something. He'd want an intro piece of music, so I'd write an intro for him, and then he'd go and do his thing, and then someone would say, well, actually, I've made a this. Could you do when you did Wire Wars, I sat there and wrote you a piece of music, and then Chris obviously did Escape Velocity, and I sat and thought, well, okay, I can write you some stuff, and then obviously writing that stuff then allowed me to then use that stuff for something else, and kind of, so the kind of creative reciprocity was pretty intense, but it was fun. I'm not. When I say intense, it wasn't. I didn't sit there and think, "Oh my gosh, I've got these deadlines and these people are counting on me." I thought, "Hey, I'm working with my mates, making some stuff," which was lovely. And in that moment of there not being anything was kind of, it had a moment for it. If you know what I mean.
But yeah, we tried loads. That's the thing as well, because I always say to people, they ask how. They ask how to get involved in podcasting, they ask me how to get involved in audio production, and I always say, it's such a accessible medium for entry. You can just try doing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, a moment's silence for some of the ideas that we put forward that that didn't continue. And I have to say, I feel like this is mostly me and John, because we did, as an offshoot of Lave Radio, first of all, we did the, God, what was it called? Chaos Champs.
Yeah.
So we tried to do Chaos Champs because at the time there was a sort of, there was this associated project.
Yeah, Chaos Reborn.
There was Chaos Reborn, which, there was a certain amount of crossover of the user base. We were really keen on it. And we had this idea for a show where we would get people to compete. They would do like an exhibition match, Chaos Reborn, head to head. John and I would do our best impression of idiot sports commentators. We would comment on the match, and and it was a fun show. But the reasons it didn't work are the same reason the other show we did was Remote Outpost Games, which was the pitch for that was, Desert Island Discs is what 10 records would you take to a desert island. Remote Outpost Games was, well, what 5 video games would you take if your ship crashed on a remote outpost or something like that. So that was always the concept. And again, I think that was a really great show. It was a really lovely format because we would get people on, largely who were game developers in the most part, and they would pick 5 sort of, largely retro games, but I think really just anything, any games that had an impact on them over the years. We did have one guest who I think originally wanted to choose like Madden 96, Madden 97, Madden 98, Madden 99. And I think once he tweaked to what the format of the show was, he was like, oh no, you probably want 5 different games to talk about, don't you? Yeah. So we would talk about the games and we would talk about why those games were great, and then we would talk to the person that we were interviewing about the project they were working on, the game they were developing, that sort of thing. And again, I think it was a really great format, and really, Remote Outpost Games and Chaos Champs both fell apart for the same reason, which is actually that just getting guests consistently week in, week out is actually, an incredibly hard job. And you sort of respect how, the TV shows and stuff, they must, they have researchers and things working on these shows whose job it is just to go and find people to come and, be on the show that week. So I think it's a shame. I think those are great formats that we tried that, we weren't able to continue. But that's the thing. You can just, I think that's what's great about audio. You can just try this stuff.
I think as well with Chaos Reborn, if it had exploded like we kind of hoped it would. I mean, obviously it sold a lot. And it made Julian, he made his money back on it at least. But it's not like if it had gone mainstream in a big way, then there'd have been calls for more content like Chaos Champs.
Yeah, no, they licensed it to social media, so it basically got redeveloped as a mobile platform game. I, being the law person behind it, I did offer to if they needed anything, and they said no, we're fine. So that was all right. So clearly, the information that they already had from me was enough. So
I did buy that as a mobile game. It's a good port.
But yeah, it wasn't Snapshot that ported it. It was a subsidiary that ported it, which was interesting. Even in that, there were conversations at Snapshot about porting it themselves, and then obviously it was sort of set through in terms of what was there. But no, absolutely. I mean, we've tried sort of different stuff. I mean, Data Slate was something I did for a while, which has worked well. But I'll be honest, and I think part of today's stuff, for this particular session is about what we're going to move on to is where we are now, and then we'll talk a little bit more about where we are in terms of our relationship with Elite Dangerous. But for me, a lot of the thing was time. The issue has been time, and as your life gets more busy and different things happen, time becomes a factor. And I know, John, that your day job, your busyness, essentially has changed quite a lot since we were regularly doing a Lave Radio podcast.
I've still managed to do some projects, though.
Yeah.
I'll talk about them after.
Okay, all right.
Finish reminiscing.
Okay.
If you want to carry on,
Do I want to go back into another piece of nostalgia? Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I can do more nostalgia.
This is a convention based around Elite. Nostalgia is what we have. It is
This
the fuel.
This is
it's
true.
the fuel that fires the engine.
This is true. No, I mean, Retro Lave was great. We need to do more. I mean, I think of all all the offshoots that we did, Retro Lave was probably the most popular.
Yeah, probably,
and just because it was just fun to get 5 or 6 people around to play a computer game, and for some of them to rage quit. Yes, Simon, I'm talking about you. Well, he's not here, but I'm sure he'll hear at some point. What did he rage quit? He rage quit Privateer, I think, wasn't it? Was it Privateer?
Oh, really?
Was it? Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but anyway, he rage quit one of the things that we played. But we tried every space sim that we could we could try, and then sort of gave our impressions in terms of what was there. And I really enjoyed Retro Lave. I thought Retro Lave worked very well. I mean, it's about time, in terms of what you do, and I think that sort of life changes in that regard. So there you go. There's my segue, John.
Oh, okay.
So what are we all up to now? What given that we've not seen each other for what, 3 years in these kind of contexts? I know we've seen each other individually at different times, and we can probably talk a little bit about that. John and I had a wonderful night out last year, which was amazing. What are we up to now? What are sort of things have we been doing since stuff, and also since the pandemic? How has things changed, and how are things coming back?
I'll go first. The pandemic, I was a very busy person because I worked for NHS Wales as a software developer. So there was a lot of stuff that needed to be put in place to handle all that. So I was doing some extra stuff. But in the kind of towards the end of it, I did have a bit more free time. And last year, just before the last virtual LaveCon, I released a game called Spinduel, which a lot of people got addicted to. Apparently, there's now self-help groups, Spinduel Anonymous.
Spinduel not so anonymous.
Yeah. It's basically a deck building game with a kind of bit of magic dueling. If you haven't played it, it's available for free download on PC. Just go to spinduel.online. Very simple game, very easy to get into. But people did have a tendency to get hooked. So there was an ethical kind of side to that as well, of whether I should.
And that's actually one of the things that probably will. I mean, I'm hoping you're going to feature that a little bit tomorrow, because you're doing your talk tomorrow.
Yeah, and please come to my talk tomorrow. It's a talk on multiplayer gaming, multiplayer game development specifically. So Spinduel is a single-player game. So, I mean, I do mention it in a kind of passing way. My current project is multiplayer, and that is a recreation of, if people remember, Gravity Force and Gravity Power, the Amiga. How would you describe it? A kind of scrolling, physics-based game.
Okay.
Spaceship. But I've done that in 3D.
Oh, cool.
And the trick of that was to actually make it fun to play with a 3D camera and not a pain in the neck. And I think I've solved it. There's no public build to test yet, but if anybody's interested in giving it a go, I can sort that out for you. There you go. So that's what I've been up to.
Do you need any music?
Any music? I might do.
You can always hit me up for music.
Yeah,
you know that.
Well,
I
I actually got some music made for me for Spinduel. Sorry, I didn't come to you. But if you think you can do space-themed stuff,
I don't know.
if you've got any experience with that, then you might be the guy for me.
Okay, all right, good to know. I'll see if I can. Chris?
So since the last LaveCon where we were all physically here? Or?
Yeah, and I was thinking a little bit that you might want to kind of segue this, as John has done, into some of the things you're going to talk about tomorrow.
Oh God, I've got no idea about that. Well, no. So tomorrow I'm hosting a panel based on what the hell just happened about the pandemic. I think that one of the things is as gamers, what has the way the world has changed affected the way we play, who we play with, our general approach to gaming as a kind of escape from what's happening in the world around us. And actually, probably, I guess looking back, probably around the time of previous LaveCons, I'd just started doing board game demonstration as a sort of part-time, a very, very part-time job. So one of the things I do occasionally, if you go to a big gaming event like UK Games Expo or Tabletop Gaming Live, there is a very good chance that I will teach you a board game while you're there. So I've been doing a lot of that, and that's been really interesting. It's been really nice to kind of get people down to tables and, kind of demystify these things. I now have this instinctive thing where if I see people sitting down with a board game and they start to open a manual, my instinctive kind of reaction is to run over and say to them, "Oh God, please don't read the manual, let me explain it to you." But in terms of the audio stuff, obviously we'd done Series 3 of Escape Velocity, and leading up to the pandemic, I was sort of building on different audio drama projects. There were a couple of other projects that would, occasionally come to me and use my studio space, and I would do the post-production for them. That's the 11th Hour, what's called the 11th Hour project, which is it's kind of like NaNoWriMo, where we basically produce a Halloween special. The whole thing is done within the month of October, which is always a challenge on me as a sound person, because normally you end up, nobody's actually free for recording until the week before the end of the deadline. But anyway, so we did a bit of that, and that was really good. And then obviously, it was working up towards the final season of Escape Velocity, and or what was then pitched as the final season of Escape Velocity. And then obviously, we had the pandemic, and suddenly getting actors into a small unventilated soundproof space suddenly didn't seem like a very good idea. So, really what I've been doing since then is basically recording standard audio. Well, not standard audio books, because it's me, and I still do sound effects and music and stuff, but, I essentially got into a place where I'm now recording audiobooks myself and then doing post-production on my own recordings. So it's very social distanced. It's me, just me. I've been doing, I've done a few of those now for a publisher of some very niche fiction. So if you'd like to hear lots of different variations on specifically Pride and Prejudice, I have recorded and released a bunch of those on Audible. So they are quite good. I should warn you, though, that one of them is quite sexy. So it really does depend on how much you want me narrating sexy. I mean, I think it's great, and I've had lots of nice compliments about it, but...
Any dates, though? That's the important.
I have actually had a few dates off the back of an extract from it. Yeah, seriously. But yeah, your guys, your aims with my voice might not be the same as their aims with my voice. Or at least I hope so.
Well, you never know. You never know what anybody's aims are until they tell you.
So I had a girlfriend at the time. She absolutely loved it. Okay. And then she told me that her mum listens to it in the bath. Got weird. Did get weird.
I'm not sure I can top that. Well, it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Well, in a kind of cringe cool kind of way.
Yeah.
What hasn't happened with me? Goodness. The pandemic period was a bit strange in that, I think it was strange for everybody, but I got into the lockdown. We finished at Coventry in March of 2020. That was our sort of lockdown, where was the UK lockdown and everything else. So I was kind of mid the last week of term, and we were trying to do live interview we were trying to interview people in a studio, and actually Chris came in for one of those.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to do those, and which was really hard, because obviously the students didn't really want to be there because they're worried about, everything else.
Because that was the Monday, and the lockdown was announced on like the Tuesday.
Yeah, it was.
It was like, go home. We finished the recording, and it was like, go home now.
Yeah, it was really difficult. So we just about got through that, and that was okay. At that point, one of my colleagues at work, and I mean, this is all a matter of public record. One of my colleagues at work went on maternity leave, and the university said, "Oh, could you run her course in the interim?" Which I thought, over the summer, that's fine. Not a problem, because most of the students have gone home, and we're in the middle of a circumstance of where we just need to finish off. And there was some summer teaching, and that's fine. I was already scheduled to do that, so that's okay. So could you be in charge? Yeah, fine, okay, so I could do that. So I did that for the summer. And in that moment, I was then due to go and take on a different course, which was a top-up degree, which I now run. That's the course that I now do. So I ended up in charge of 2 courses, which was fine for the summer because it was quiet, so I could just get the teaching done. And I had to quickly do all the teaching as remote teaching, and sort that all out. And that was okay. And there was nothing on the new course to teach for that period of time. So during that period, I'm writing. Some people may know that I was working on a science fiction novel called Fearless at that point, and I was just tweaking. It was being submitted around at that point, and we did WorldCon, the World Science Fiction Convention in Dublin, and we'd agreed. This was in was it summer? No, this was summer 2019. So this was, the contract was agreed, and I'd started working on the sequel. So. All the kind of edit passing was coming backwards and forwards during the summer of 2020, and I was getting that all ready. And we knew we had a publishing date in September. Originally July, pushed back to September. But of course, publishing in the pandemic was a little bit more difficult because infrastructures, print, paper was quite, tricky to, all of the kind of supply infrastructures were starting to become a bit difficult. But, to my publisher's credit, they were being absolutely fantastic. And so I ran this course during the summer. I had my book published in September in 2020. Went incredibly well in terms of its launch. We were really, really happy. And obviously everyone was in lockdown, which was kind of, well, a lot of people were reading, which, I take as a reason as to why they were reading me. So that all happened. And then, unfortunately, the course that I was running as maternity cover, I'd said I would do it for the summer, and that summer turned into until the end of the year. So I then had to do the winter term running their course whilst also running the course that I was actually teaching on, which was a split course between one cohort in Coventry and one cohort in China. So Hong Kong, not China, Hong Kong. I had to manage those 2 cohorts and manage the course that was in Coventry, and it was hard, particularly with the fact that we were trying to do hybrid teaching. We were trying to have class teaching wherever we possibly could. Classes were being split into bubbles, so we had groups in that you would then have to repeat teach in small numbers, which meant more tutors, which meant doing more online, and then doing it because you had to have parity of experience and everything else. So it was really tough because actually I had to do that for the stuff that I was employed for, but I also had to do it for somebody else's stuff because they were on maternity leave. So yeah, it was hard. And I was writing the sequel to Fearless, and I managed to get that sequel to about 5,000 words from being complete, and then I just jammed because I just had too much on. And it took a while, took about 2 months to do those last 5,000 words. Got them done about Christmas that year, so 2020 Christmas, I managed to just about get there. And then Larian Studios came in and said, "Would you like to be a contract writer on Baldur's Gate 3? and we'd like to give you a few weeks of work doing that. Would you be interested? And I went, yes, I'd love to do that, because I'll do that over Christmas. So I did a few weeks on that, which was lovely, but goodness, I was still, sort of working at this incredible pace. And things have gradually eased. I mean, that was hard, but things have gradually eased. And we've had some lovely stuff. Fearless has done well. Resilient came out at EasterCon, and we're going to have a launch in a minute here. So yes, I've brought a few copies. So if anybody wants to pick one up, you can come down to the panel room and do that. And Flame Tree then commissioned me to do 6 more pieces and some other stuff. So yeah, I've suddenly got really busy. 2019, I became chair of the British Science Fiction Association too. And now I've got like all these little novellas that I'm working on. Plus, I've got this non-fiction dictionary I'm working on. I was part of a novel that won an award at Easter, or rather a non-fiction book that won an award at Easter, Worlds Apart. I did a chapter in that. It's about world building in science fiction and fantasy, which is kind of my jam, which is why I did the work that I did on Elite Dangerous back all those years ago. Yeah, it's been pretty full on. And that's not even coming up to the recent news, which, I'm about to go on a secondment, which, is like amazing. I'm off on a research secondment to work with another organization. So, yeah, it's been very, very weird. But it means that time for doing a lovely podcast that I always used to really enjoy is kind of evaporated, which is a bit of a shame.
I was going to say, I mean, we've only got 8 minutes left to talk.
Used it.
7 minutes. No, I was going to say we've got 7 minutes left to talk about what our current kind of playing relationship with Elite Dangerous is. I have to say, I will not be troubling much of that 7 minutes myself. It is, it's not a game that I have played recently. I'm always kind of minded when I come to LaveCon. I always sort of get that excitement about the game again. I think I really should just go home and install it. But it has been, with things happening over the years, I've actually realised after the last releases or updates, I'm not sure what I've even got. Because I definitely had all the previous stuff with Elite, and definitely backed the Kickstarter, and now I don't know. I'll be interested to sign in to my account and click install and see what actually ends up on my computer.
John, did you want to?
Well, I've actually played it relatively recently,
Cool.
a couple of months ago. I logged in. I'm still not really playing it as Horizons. I'm still playing it as in a spaceship.
Yeah.
Because when I did try Horizons when it first came out, and I think it was kind of...
You mean Odyssey, right?
Odyssey, sorry. I'm playing it as Horizons, not as Odyssey.
Yeah.
I see. I thought you meant you weren't even landing on planets. I'm like, that's the hardcore Elite experience.
Well, part of me wanted to not land on planets as a way to get back at David Braben for not giving me dinosaurs and trees yet.
To be fair, we were all at BAFTA games when he promised us dinosaurs and trees. We did interview him at BAFTA where he did promise dinosaurs and trees.
It's kind of hard to boycott landing on planets. So I was
I will say about that though, because I have been playing a little bit of No Man's Sky. Do forgive me, but it's funny because we were saying about because David Braben at that thing said about how there'll be dinosaurs and maybe you'll go big game hunting. So now I don't know if you've played No Man's Sky, but in that you get missions to just go and kill random creatures, and I have to say it just makes me sad. And I don't take those missions, so I don't think we're necessarily losing anything.
No, maybe morals have moved.
I didn't want to shoot the dinosaurs. I just wanted to see them.
Oh no, shoot.
Take a photograph. That's shooting.
But I did notice that bounty hunting has it's been boosted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make a lot of money doing it. So I did enjoy that for the brief spell. I will be giving Odyssey another shout.
Okay.
Soon.
So I said before that I tend to play games these days when there's a project. So with Baldur's Gate, immediately I was all over Baldur's Gate because I was having to write for Baldur's Gate. So immediately I was going to do lots of Baldur's Gate. I recently, and this took up a lot of my time, recently interviewed for a position at Games Workshop, and it was I spent an awful lot of time kind of reacquiring all my knowledge and updating myself in relation to what they were up to, and didn't get it. So so that was something that you kind of feel like maybe I wasted a bit of time there. But I certainly look at what this game is, and I recognise that sometimes there is a little bit of criticism in relation to what what's been made, what isn't there, and we've kind of been lazy critical just for a minute there. But goodness, if we looked at this now and we thought back to 2013 and we thought back to the people that we were hoping that this game would come out, and we were given this, I think we'd think it was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't do everything that we said, but Moon on a Stick isn't quite all there. But
Back in the day, we didn't have them planets. Back in the day, we had a spaceship, and we had a bunch of rocks that it was flying through.
Yeah.
And that was all we were given.
Yeah, and and when you look at all of the things that are there, I think they are pretty funky. I mean, my last serious play was getting my my land vehicle stuck in a box, and then going on a Lave radio episode and letting people help me get it out of that box, because I got it stuck in one of the parking things, and I could not reverse it out of this box, which is just nuts.
I'm quite sad to know that I think I originally set the record for the longest ever buckyball time, but I think someone has taken longer now.
Okay.
Which I'm a little bit sad about. Yeah, I played it. I think the last time I really played it seriously, properly, was just when ship-launched fighters had come out.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever really fully explored that mechanism. But so that gives you an idea of when when I last played it properly.
And I think I think given the enthusiasm and the keen in relation to the continual development, the conversations today in relation to story, what was being said today in relation to narrative and story. I mean, I can't help but big that up, because I think that's wherever you start from, maybe you're starting from here or you're starting from there, if you're bringing story as part of the key ways in which you're going to develop your computer game, then I think that's more power to that. That is always, I think, the best way to try and develop something. The graphics, I'm going to say the graphics don't matter as much if the story's there.
I've noticed a thing, though, in the kind of gaming community more recently, when I talk to people about the games that they play and the games that they love, there is a definite thing that a lot of us have learnt, which is don't burn yourself out on the alpha release of a game. Because quite often, by the time you actually get to version 1.0 of a game, you've kind of already made yourself a little bit fed up with it.
Yeah.
And I mentioned No Man's Sky. I mean, I played No Man's Sky when it first came out, and I thought, this is fine. It is what it's basically sort of a little bit like Minecraft, but then you get to fly a ship, sort of. And I came back to it about 2 months ago, having not played it since that first release, and it's a completely different game. And I think that would be the same thing about Elite. I mean, I remember I'd put in 300 or 400 hours, I think, on Elite before it was even released. And I think there is a danger with certainly with the way Steam works and the way modern game development works. There is a tendency for people to want to put the game in front of people as quickly as they can, and that's great. But I think there can be a tendency to just really fill your love for that game just from the alpha version, and actually you miss out on all the amazing polish that you get when the game actually hits kind of 1.0 and beyond. And I think I hear that back from a lot of different people now.
I knew you were going to do this. We can see the clock. And I knew that was going to be a really, really intelligent and salient point. Yeah. And you were going to say it right at the end. And that is how I would like you
to remember me.
Yeah. Why don't you open with that?
Okay, so I think we're pretty much out of time, guys. But you've both got talks to do tomorrow, which hopefully people can go across and see.
Come to my talk.
And as Chris has, obviously
a talk
knows.
Or a panel?
talkie panels. It's up to you. You've got the room. You structure it how you want it. And as Chris is, as obviously is obviously very aware, I've now got to go straight to a launch. So hopefully some of you will join me. It's up to you if you want to, but thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we as veterans can occasionally come back and offer some more insightful observations of Elite Dangerous when we've had a little bit of a chance to play them.
And I will go and loiter in the board games room. Board games. Come and play board games with me. Come and find a board game. Come play board games.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Is your life like this?
Sounds like someone having an orange inserted. Need a safe word.
Space can be lonely.
I'm gonna see the galaxy.
Ah, damn it. No worries, guys. Hold the fort for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.